Hello and welcome to World War II Part 10, featuring the Battle of Britain and the Widening War. So as we finished off, France has fallen, and now Hitler, due to Britain rejecting any form of peace advance or talks, decides to prepare for the invasion of Britain. Now the attack on Britain, that is planned by the Germans and the Wehrmacht, comprises a plan involving 41 divisions, 6 of them armoured and 3 of them motorised, plus the Luftwaffe's 7th Parachute Division and the 22nd Airborne Division. So D-Day was set for August 25th, Rundstedt's Army Group A would cross the Channel with 2 armies, the right flank, the 16th Army under Buch, concentrated between Ostend and the Somme, would land between Ramsgate and Hastings, and the left flank of the attack, the 9th Army under Strass, would concentrated between the Somme and the Orne, would land between Brighton and Littlehampton with a detachment on the Isle of Wight, So the Gravesend, Reigate, Portsmouth line was designated as the first objective for Rundstedt's Army Group. Now, simultaneously, or after a short delay, Box Army Group B would launch Richelieu's 6th Army from the Cherbourg Peninsula across against the Dorset coast, landing between Weymouth and Lyme Regis. It would strike towards Bristol, pushing a detachment towards Devon. At this moment, the 9th Army would break the British defences along the North Downs, cover the Thames at Reading, and encircle London from the west. The second objective for Rundstedt and Bock was the line connecting Malden on the North Sea with Gloucester on the Severn. So that was the initial German plan, to attack Britain. Now, Hitler, of course, had a completely, overwhelming superiority in air power. But Britain had a number of things as well. We had a built radar system. We also had home ground, Our fighters did not have to fly for a long period of time, extending much amounts of fuel. So basically, we were fighting on hometown territory. Now, to tackle England, the Luftwaffe was deployed into 3 air fleets. Luftflotte 5 was in Norway and Denmark. Luftflotte 2 under Kesselring was in Belgium and Holland. And in northern France, Luftflotte 3 was positioned. Now, on August 13th, the Luftwaffe deployed 969 bombers, 336 Junkers Ju-87 Stukas, 869 Bf-109 single-engine fighters, and 268 twin-engine Bf-110 destroyer fighters. Included in the bombers were Dornier DOS 17s, Heinkel 88s, the whole works. So Germany had a massive advantage. Now, Marshal Sir Hugh Dowding had only 1,341 pilots. We'd lost a number of planes in France, but pilots were in short supply. So basically, it meant that we had 620 Hurricanes and Spitfires, to meet the threat of the Germans. So as Hurricanes and Spitfires were outnumbered by nearly 300 Messerschmitt Bf-109s, and this is how the battle would take shape. The Germans would launch massive raids, and basically they would overwhelm the RAF, then land their land forces as directed, and achieve the targets they had set for the invasion of Britain. And really, if the RAF had collapsed, and the German army groups had managed to take those targets and then start ferrying across, the armoured panzer divisions, Britain, after leaving much of its military equipment on the beaches of Dunkirk and surrounding area, and had still not been re-equipped yet in any way, the British Army would have been able to put up token resistance, really, lacking equipment, lacking morale, if those panzers would have got across the Channel. So the entire hope of the UK rests with the RAF and those 1,130-ish pilots. Now, so let us, before we get to the Battle of Britain, let us cover some more events leading up to it. So on June 30th, the Germans land in Jersey and Guernsey, a part of the UK that they would indeed hold. Now, from beginning of June up to that date of June 30th, a dozen merchant ships have left the USA for Britain, carrying machine guns, ammunition, and other arms. Now, on July 1st, Marshal Rodolfo Graziano succeeds Marshal Balbo as a commander-in-chief of Italian forces in North Africa and becomes the governor of Libya. Now, obviously, they would, certainly not do very well in that regard, I'll just say. So on July 3rd, a British naval squadron commanded by Admiral Somerville shells French French vessels that have taken refuge at Oran and Mers El Kebir after the armistice at Campania. Several French ships are sunk or damaged, including the battleships Province and Bretagne and the battlecruiser Dunkerque. Now, 1,300 French seamen lose their lives in the action. The only other battlecruiser in French squadron, the Strasbourg, the aircraft carrier Commandant Test, and 5 more destroyers succeed in escaping from British encirclement. French warships at anchor in Plymouth and Portsmouth are taken over. This was a move because, you know, the Western ally, the remaining ally, the UK, did not want the Germans to gain access to the modern French ships, especially ships that I'll cover on the warship chart, like the modern battleships like the Richelieu, and many other ships. You know, France had a large navy, and, you know, the last thing Churchill wanted was the Germans gaining access to that navy, you know, training the troops to operate the French equipment, because that would have been a nightmare if Germany could have added many of France's more modern warships, you know, to the ranks of the Kriegsmarine under German command. But the French were not very happy about it. Now, towards evening on July 4th, okay, the battlecruiser Strasbourg, the aircraft carrier Command Test, and 5 other destroyers do succeed in escaping from the port of Mers El Kebir near Oran. They reach port at Toulon. Now, Winston Churchill gives a speech, okay. He says, "I leave the judgment of our actions with confidence to Parliament. I leave it to the nation, and I leave it to the United States. I leave it to the world and to history." Now, obviously, I think it was a good move, even though, you know, the French were still our allies. We had to stop Germany gaining hold of those ships. Now, following the British attack on French fleet, Marshal Pétain's government at Vichy breaks off diplomatic relations with Britain. Obviously, the Free French forces in Britain are being run by Charles de Gaulle, General de Gaulle at the moment. So basically, you know, Operation Catapult has provoked an angry response, even from French people living in Britain. Now, a retaliatory action is carried out by French torpedo carrying aircraft against Gibraltar, but they cause no damage. This is the only hostile action the French launch in countenance to the action of Mers El Kebir. Now, on July 6th, okay, Hitler proposes a peace pact with Britain based on partition of the world. And basically, Hitler always kind of idolized Britain in a way. He didn't respect us in some ways, but he respected Britain. And ultimately, when France and Europe was taken care of and he went east, he wanted to form a peace treaty with Britain. He were going to give Britain 12 full German divisions under British commanders to place anywhere in our empire that we needed them. And he wanted the Royal Navy, you know, after signing an alliance with Germany, to guard Western Europe, because we're still at this moment, you know, the UK had the most powerful navy in the world. Not even the American Navy could hope to tackle us and hope to come out as a winner, because not only did we have the largest navy, we had the most battle experienced navy as well. But of course, all future you know, things were rejected. Now, on 9th of July, the first major naval encounter occurs off coast of Calabria between a British squadron, including 1 aircraft carrier, 3 battleships, 5 light cruisers and 6 destroyers, commanded by Vice Admiral Sir Andrew Cunningham, and an Italian squadron, okay, comprising 2 battleships, 6 heavy cruisers, 12 light cruisers, and a number of destroyers led by Admiral Campione. Now, the action ends, okay, with the Italian flagship, the battleship Giulio Cesar, is hit by the British flagship Warspite, a tough battleship that you will see joining my warship playlist. The video's ready. Now, the Italian admiral managed to reach Messina, the British aircraft from aircraft carrier Eagle, play an effective part in the battle, but the intervention of Italian aircraft is entirely ineffective, okay. Italy claims a naval victory, but it is no such sort. Now, on July 10th, the first large-scale attack on United Kingdom, okay, 70 German aircraft raid South Wales docks. The French National Assembly at Vichy gives full powers to Marshal Pétain with 569 votes in favour, with only 70 against. And on July 11th, Marshal Pétain is declared the chief of the French state, and he forms a new government. Now, Grand Admiral Erich von Raeder, commander of the Kriegsmarine, tries to persuade Hitler not to attack Britain from the sea, i.e. not to give out orders for carrying out of Operation Sea Lion. The Admiral considers invasion of Britain should be attempted only as a last resort. So basically, on July 12th, General Jodl writes a memorandum giving his views on Operation Sea Lion. He states the practical difficulties of the action would be overcome if the invasion were treated as a river crossing in force on a very wide front. He adds that the role of the artillery in such an operation would be taken over by the Luftwaffe, which would have to overcome the RAF before landings on the British coast could be carried out. So basically, Hitler will be invaded if they can defeat the RAF. If the RAF fall, then Britain will be invaded and the Germans will launch their invasion plans. Now, on July 13th, after long discussions with his closest collaborators, Hitler issues Directive Number 15, outlining the strategy to be followed by the Luftwaffe, the Kriegsmarine, and the land forces of the Wehrmacht. Now, the general air offensive is to begin on August 5th, and the main objective is to annihilate the RAF. Now, basically, the Germans have well over 2,000 aircraft for this purpose, and they plan to ransack the RAF quickly so they can proceed with their invasion plans. But obviously, it doesn't entirely go all that well, Now, on July 16th, Hitler's Directive Number 16 states, Hitler states, since Britain, despite its desperate situation, shows no signs of understanding, I've decided to prepare a landing operation against the country and to carry it out if necessary. This is the official starting gun for preparation of Operation Sea Lion, which has its immediate object the landing of 20 divisions on the south coastline of England. The operation will not be launched until the Luftwaffe has annihilated the RAF and won complete air superiority over the Channel. They cannot fight, the Royal Navy and gain any supremacy there if the RAF is there hounding them, basically. The main hope, rests in the resistance of Britain's air arm. So if our air arm wins, we win. If our air arm fails, Britain will be invaded. Now, on July 21st, Russia annexes the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania as autonomous republics within the USSR. Now, on July 22nd, Churchill replies to Hitler's peace offer through Foreign Minister Lord Halifax, and he said, "We never wanted war. Certainly no one here wants the war to go on for a day longer than is necessary, but we shall not stop fighting till freedom for ourselves and others is secure." So Churchill giving a very, very strong reply to Hitler there. And on July 25th, Italian air formations bombed the naval base at Alexandria in Egypt, British naval base, and the base at Haifa in Palestine. Rome admits already that in naval action around Mediterranean, they've already lost 16 submarines. Incredible. So on July 26th, Romanian Prime Minister and Foreign Minister meet Hitler at the Berchtesgaden, and on July 27th, Bulgarian Prime Minister and Foreign Minister also visit Adolf Hitler. So basically, Hitler on July 31st, calls a meeting at top officers at Navy to discuss the situation with Operation Sea Lion. Now, Admiral Raeder, the Commander-in-Chief, gives a detailed exposition of the difficulties the Kriegsmarine will face in crossing the Channel and facilitating the invasion of Britain. In his judgment, it would be expedient to postpone Operation Sea Lion from 13th September to between 19th and 26th of September due to tides, and above all, limit the operations in Straits of Dover. But finally, he comes back to ideas expressed before, and the operation should be postponed until spring of 1941. Now, on July 31st, 15 more ships full of arms and equipment sail for British ports from the USA. Now, in July, civilian casualties from air raids in Britain are 258 killed and 321 wounded, so casualties are already coming in. Now, on August 1st, Hitler issues his top-secret Directive Number 17, which includes the categorical order to Luftwaffe to crush the British Air Force by every means available. Now, in the light of this order, it's become obvious that Sea Lion has become subordinate to and dependent on the outcome of the air battle over Britain. Now, the beginning of the attack is fixed for August 5th. Now, in Moscow, Foreign Minister Molotov reaffirms Russia's neutral standpoint in the fight between Britain and Germany. Now, on August 2nd, Lord Beaverbrook, Minister for Aircraft Production, is appointed to the War Cabinet. Other members are Churchill, Chamberlain, Lord Halifax, Attlee, and Arthur Greenwood. Now, on August 3rd, it's announced in London that a large contingent of Canadian troops, including some US subjects, has arrived in Britain. So Britain's now starting to call forces from the British Empire into the UK. On August 4th, in East Africa, the Italian attack on British Somaliland begins. On August 4th, also, further drafts of Australian troops are now arriving in Britain. This is where Britain is relying on the Commonwealth and pulling troops from Canada, Australia, Africa, Gurkha units, all kinds of units into the UK to prepare for the fight if the Germans come over the Channel. Now, on August 6th, the first contingent of Southern Rhodesian airmen arrives in Britain. And on August 8th, okay, a special statute is approved in London by Churchill and de Gaulle, and it lays down the conditions of employment of the Free French Volunteers. So they're already working on integrating blah, 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 the Free French in with British society more. Now, an EVA German offensive operation, Britain has upgraded their aircraft to 704 fighters, 620 Hurricanes and Spitfires, and they have nearly 400 bombers. Germany can count on 2,700 aircraft of all types, so we are outnumbered nearly 3-1. Now, on August 11th, okay, waves of German fighters and bombers carry out attacks on southeastern Channel coasts in daytime raids. Over 200 planes attack radar stations at Portland and Weymouth, and the RAF, okay, attacks enemy targets in France. On August 12th, okay, a heavy German air attack is made on Portsmouth. Now, on August 13th, okay, the Day of the Eagle, the code name given to first day of the coming weeks of the full-scale bombing by the Luftwaffe of British headquarters, airfields and aircraft factories. On the first day, okay, the Germans send over 1,485 aircraft in multiple sorties, losing 45 aircraft. The RAF lose 13 of their fighters and lose 7 pilots. Now, this initial phase of battle already shows up the defects and shortages for Luftwaffe. The Stukas, for instance, with a maximum speed of 190 mile per hour, when they're fully loaded with all the bombs, are easy prey for Spitfires, which are way more maneuverable and much faster. You're talking about 170, 180 mile per hour faster and fly, nearly 3 times the combat height of the Stuka. And then the Messerschmitt Bf-110 fighter bombers are not particularly maneuverable. The Dornier Do-17 Heinkel and Ju-88 bombers are carrying such heavy payloads that they also are at massive risk of being downed by the fighters. Although German headquarters say that 4 days should be enough to demolish British air defences south of a line from London to Gloucester, and 4 weeks sufficiently to wipe out the RAF altogether. So the Italian Foreign Minister on August 13th, okay, Galeazzo Ciano, instigates a press campaign for an attack on Greece and calls for General Praska, commander of the Italian troops in Albania, and recalls him to Rome. The British, meanwhile, on August 13th, decide to send powerful armoured forces to the Middle East. They are fully preparing for an Italian attack, although the Italian attack that I'll cover in next episode does not go well. August 14th, okay, is a day of bad weather over the UK, okay. German aircraft fly over 500 missions, launch over 500 raids over Britain. The targets mainly being railway lines near the coast and RAF operational headquarters in the south. On August 14th, okay, the USA and Great Britain agree on the general lines of a mutual undertaking by Americans, which would give Britain 50 destroyers in exchange for the use by the Americans of British bases in the Western Atlantic. So Churchill's trying to strengthen and solidify ties and trade deals with Roosevelt and the US. Now, on 15th of August, okay, there's fine weather. The German Air Force launches its biggest attack yet. At least 7 massive formations of aircraft sweep all over Britain. All 3 Luftwaffe fleets are employed in a series of coordinated attacks on targets a considerable distance apart. They're raiding multiple targets all over the UK in the hope of stretching and diminishing the RAF's ability to withstand. Now, all the German raids, which start at 11:30 and they go on until 6:30 p.m, 7 hours of solid German aircraft raids all over the country, are tenaciously resisted by the British fighters and anti-aircraft gun batteries. The British fighters never give the German planes a minute. The Luftwaffe sends 520 bombers and 1,270 fighters into the attack that day, losing 75 aircraft. The British only lose 34 aircraft, but the British have way less numbers and way less trained pilots. Now, on August 16th, okay, more air raids on Britain. The Luftwaffe makes repeated attacks on airfields and the London docks area. King George VI sends the following telegram to Secretary for War, Sir Archibald Sinclair. King George conveys the following quote: "Please convey my warmest congratulations to the fighter squadrons who in recent days have been so brave and tenacious and heavily engaged in defence of our country. I, with all our compatriots, have read with ever-increasing admiration the story of their daily victories. I wish them continued success and all the best luck." Now, on August 17th, okay, the Germans withdraw the Stuka dive bombers from the attacking force since they are far too vulnerable to the excellent Spitfires and Hurricanes with their 8 Browning .303 machine guns. They chew the Stukas up. Now, basically, August 17th, Hitler announces a total blockade of the British Isles, and the German Foreign Minister Joachim von Ribbentrop switches off the anti-Greek campaign launched 3 days earlier by the Italian Foreign Minister Ciano. Hitler does not want any military involvement in the Balkans. The Greek headquarters begin full-scale mobilization, calling up categories in the districts of Epirus and Western Macedonia, amongst others. And meanwhile, the RAF bomb oil plants, munition factories, and other targets in France and Germany. So while the Germans are raiding us, we are also raiding German targets in France and Germany. Now, August 18th, the Luftwaffe launches further heavy attacks at midday on British airfields in Kent, Surrey and Sussex. They lose 71 aircraft, but Britain ominously also loses 27 additional aircraft. So basically, okay, the Germans have lost 363 planes in the battle so far, while the British fighter squadrons have lost 211 Spitfires. Now, the thing is about German planes, okay, if a German plane is hit and they bail out and parachute out, or they survive, they are captured by British forces. But if our British pilots eject and get out of the plane and parachute out, they can simply be recovered and can be in a fighter plane the next day. Every German plane that comes down is a pilot lost, but every British plane that falls is not guaranteed to be a pilot lost. So while we've lost 211 Spitfires and Hurricanes, we have only lost 154 pilots. But you know, we only had 1,300 pilots anyway, so that number is already coming down. Now on August 19th, the Italians occupy Berbera, okay, which is the capital of British Somaliland. On August 20th, okay, Churchill makes a statement on the war situation and speaking at British Isles. This is when Churchill coins his famous phrase, "Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few." Italian bombers also bomb Gibraltar on August 20th as Mussolini widens his war from Somaliland to other areas, okay. On August 25th, Mussolini orders all preparations for war against Greece to be postponed for the time being. Now on August 23rd, okay, nets are placed in position at the entrance to the main Greek harbours, in particular those on the Ionian Sea, and the strict routes are specified for civil air traffic. This is to fend off possible moves by the Italian Navy. Now on August 24th, okay, heavy German air raids on Northern Weald and Hornchurch. Two RAF command centres are put under intensive attack, and the first bombs fall on central London. St Giles Church in Cricklegate is damaged. August 25th, in a night retaliatory raid, RAF aircraft bomb Berlin. Now, Hermann Göring had long assured Hitler that no such thing could ever happen, that British bombers would never be able to reach Berlin, but they have, and Hitler goes into a rage. Now on August 28th, liaison officers at Army and Navy who had been serving in Dakar, French West Africa, before the collapse of France, also arrive in London. And during the night on August 28th, okay, many incendiary bombs are dropped on London, as Hitler vows that if they can bomb our cities, we will erase theirs. And you see, with the bomb attack on Berlin, Churchill challenged Hitler's ego. Hitler's ego could not allow Berlin to be bombed without retaliation. And through the Battle of Britain, what saves the RAF in the Battle of Britain is Hitler's switch to nighttime bomb attacks, especially on London and other areas, because it allows the RAF squadrons to suddenly start recycling, where some squadrons will guard that territory for a few days, other pilots will have a rest, and they will swap. Those fresh pilots will come back in, thus giving the RAF a massive advantage. Now on August 30th, okay, a renewed German air offensive against RAF operational command centres in south. The airbase at Biggin Hill, Kent, is attacked twice. Further night incendiary raids on London and other towns are launched, and civilian casualties in Britain during August are 1,075. Now on August 31st, okay, British reconnaissance reports an enormous assembly of German landing craft in ports and estuaries on the other side of the channel. Now on August 31st, okay, 39 aircraft are destroyed when the Luftwaffe attacks RAF operational headquarters at Debden, Biggin Hill and Hornchurch. Now, the ships composing Force M sail from Scapa Flow, okay, Britain's principal naval base. The squadron is to support a landing at Dakar, French West Africa, by General de Gaulle and 2,700 free French troops, with the objective of finding new adherents to his movement and especially to detach the French colonies in Equatorial Africa from the Vichy government. Now, the plan submitted by British government by General de Gaulle at the beginning of August was enthusiastically taken up by Churchill. Of course it is. De Gaulle's trying to gain more French territory infantry onto his side in Africa, which will strengthen Britain's position in Africa, amongst other things. Now, Forcem comprises the ships Barnum and Resolution, the aircraft carrier Ark Royal, 5 cruisers, 16 destroyers, 2 corvettes, plus 3 corvettes of the Free French Navy. Now, on September 1st, further raids by the Luftwaffe aircraft on the operational centres at Biggin Hill. On September 2nd, further heavy air raids on Biggin Hill and other aerodromes during daylight, and night attacks continue in London. Now, on September 3rd, an agreement is signed between the US and Britain by which the Americans will supply 50 destroyers to Royal Navy in exchange for a lease of naval bases in Jamaica, St. Lucia, Trinidad, Antigua and British Guyana, and the free bases in Newfoundland and Bermuda. So on September 4th, Hitler declares in a speech, "I've tried to spare the British. They have mistaken my humanity for weakness and have replied by murdering German women and children." This is where Hitler's angry at the RAF bombing of Berlin on August 25th, 26, which caused some civilian deaths. And Hitler states, as I mentioned earlier, if they attack our cities, we will simply erase theirs. During the night, on that very same night, German aircraft dropped flares over London. Now, on September 5th, in retaliation to Hitler's speech the day before, the Germans launched their longest attack on London. 7.5 hours the alerts are going. On September 6th, German bombing raids on port installations along the south coast of Britain elicits the yellow invasion alarm, signalling to Britain that a probable attack could happen from across the channel by German forces in 3 days. Now, on September 6th, the RAF again bombs Berlin in a 2-hour night raid. Now, on September 7th, in response to the bombing of Berlin, it is the commencement of the official London Blitz. At 5 p.m. on September 7th, 300 German bombers, escorted by 600 fighters, dropped 337 tons of bombs on London. Now, the principal targets being Woolwich Arsenal and the docks area, but also indiscriminate attacks on civilian targets. Huge fires are caused. Firemen are out fighting fires everywhere. Buildings are collapsing. 306 people are killed, 1,337 seriously injured. At 8:07 p.m, British headquarters issued the code word Cromwell to Eastern and Southern commands, which means probable invasion of Britain within 24 hours. They're assuming that the Germans are stepping up the raids and stepping up their attacks and massing the Luftwaffe attacks due to the coming invasion, but it never comes. Now, on September 8th, during night, 200 bombers of the Luftwaffe attack electricity power stations and railway lines in London. On September 9th, more German air raids are launched on London. The Germans lose 28 aircraft during the night. The British lose 19 fighters. On September 9th as well, Italy also launches air raids on Tel Aviv in Palestine. Now, on September 10th, a council of war in Berlin. Now, since the RAF continues resistance and British fighters are still so effective that it's impossible to guarantee a landing on coast of Britain except by surprise, the starting operational date, for Sea Lion is put back to September 14th. And in fact, that could not have begun before September 24th, since the German Navy needs a number of days advance warning, and they have not received that. Now, the Luftwaffe still has a few days with which to silence the RAF and commence the invasion of Britain. Now, on September 10th, further RAF night raids happen on Berlin, and British air raids on Massawa, Asmara and Desi in East Africa, and on targets in Cyrenia. So the RAF are now starting to retaliate against French actions in Africa, which we'll cover in the next part more so. Now, on September 11th, Buckingham Palace itself is damaged in an air raid. And on September 11th, the Italian offensive in Egypt begins, but I won't go too much into that. We'll cover the early Italian offensives and naval engagements in the next part. Now, the ships of British Forcem are about 300 miles northeast of Dakar. This is, of course, carrying de Gaulle. And at the same time, it becomes known that a French squadron with 3 cruisers and 3 large destroyers has left Toulon and entered the Atlantic through Strait of Gibraltar and is sailing southwest towards Dakar with the intention of resisting the landing of General de Gaulle's Free French volunteers. Now, on September 12th and 13th, poor visibility considerably cuts down the Luftwaffe's activity over London. and the night attacks are also reduced. On September 14th, which was supposed to be the beginning of Operation Sea Lion, okay, it's postponed to September 17th, which means putting off the landing itself until the 27th of September, giving the Kriegsmarine those 10 days notice. And on September 27th is the last day in September on which the tides will be suitable for a landing. So the German Navy and landing forces are running out of time when the tides will be favourable. On September 15th, German bombers fly over London in waves all day and all night. Hundreds of German bombers, escorted by fighters, go over the London and they inflict catastrophic damage. But it does not include any essential war targets. They are bombing now civilian targets. Other Luftwaffe formations make for Southampton, seeking to hit the city's seaplane installations but meet with violent anti-aircraft fire. Bristol, Cardiff, Liverpool and Manchester are also attacked during the night. The Germans have thrown 230 bombers and 700 fighters into battle, losing 56 aircraft, while the RAF lose 23. The British claim nearly 200 German planes lost. Thus, on the day which Göring had hoped to eliminate the RAF, had actually been a British victory and signalled to the Germans that the RAF was still there as a fully functioning fighting force. Now, on September 16th, President Roosevelt of the US signs this conscription bill, okay, allowing him to draw conscripts into the American army. Now, on September 17th, Operation Sea Lion is postponed until further orders. Now, September 22nd, so from September 22nd going back to August 13th, the day of the Eagle, okay, at least 15,000 tons of bombs, 15,000 tons of bombs have been dropped on Britain. Now, King George VI on September 23rd broadcast at British people that the George Cross and George Medal are now being instituted as civilian awards. So civilians, in the ongoing battle, they can win those awards. Now, the French ships of Force M are just off Dakar, ready to launch de Gaulle's operation, the landing at 3 French troops in French West Africa. It's hoped that Vichy forces will offer no resistance. Okay, at 7 a.m, General de Gaulle broadcasts an ineffectual radio appeal to authorities at French colony, asking permission to land with his troops. The same appeal is reissued at 8 p.m. After 5 emissaries bearers a message from the General to Governor Boisson have given short shrift and almost been taken prisoner. Yet a third appeal remains unheard despite the threat of use of force. But at 10:50 a.m, okay, it is the Dakar coastal batteries and the ships in anchor that open fire on the British ships, which return fire. Attempts by 3 French to land are quickly checked, and the barrage from Dakar proves effective in driving off de Gaulle and the 3 French forces. Now, basically, on September 24th, aircraft from British carrier Ark Royal tried to bomb the Dakar coastal batteries and the formidable battleship Richelieu, but the British battleship Barnum is hit, though not too bad. It is not sunk. And on September 25th, the second battleship in British squadron, the Resolution, is also hit by French shells and severely damaged. The defences of Dakar continued to show themselves very effective and precise, and it's realised by British commanders and de Gaulle himself that a landing will cost too much in men and material, and wisely morning the British ships are ordered to withdraw to Freetown, okay, capital at British colony of Sierra Leone. So British aircraft also raid the port of Tobruk, and naval forces bombard the Sidi Barani region, but like I say, I will go through that in the next part. Now, on September 27th, the Tripartite Pact, okay, between Germany, Italy and Japan is signed in Berlin. The agreement obliges signatories to give military assistance in case of any attack by any country not already involved in the war, and it also recognises the right of the Italians and Germans to establish a new order in Europe and the Japanese to impose their new order in Asia. On September 27th, okay, a further 55 German planes are shot down in action over Britain. Now, on September 28th, I've mentioned the deal, okay, for use of British ports by the Americans to supply 50 destroyers, and the first 5 US destroyers are transferred to the Royal Navy on September 28th, arriving in Britain. So since the start of the air offensive on September 30th, okay, since start of air offensive over London on September 7th, the British have lost 247 fighters, but they have shot down 433 Luftwaffe planes. Now, civilian casualties for September have completely gone up from the earlier months, due to the incendiary attacks, night bombings of London and civilian targets. 6,954 civilian casualties in Britain are taken in September, and over 10,500 injured. On October 2nd, night air attacks continue on London. Now, also on October 2nd, Hitler still has not lost hope of being able to carry out a landing in Britain, although commanders of his army and navy advise him to abandon the project rather than expose their craft gathered in European ports to British bombing. Now, on October 3rd, the ships of Force M, which took part in the action against Dakar from 23rd to 25th September, leave Freetown, where they'd taken refuge, and escort the Free French forces to Douala in the French Cameroons. They are not accompanied by British battleships Barnum and Resolution, which have sailed for Mediterranean, to help deal with the Italian actions there. The Resolution is put into Gibraltar for repairs for the damage suffered in the action off Dakar with the coastal batteries. Neville Chamberlain, resigns from the British War Cabinet on grounds of ill health on October 3rd. Now, October 5th, daylight air attacks on Britain by Luftwaffe cease completely, though out nighttime raids continue without respite. 1 mile tunnel between Bethnal Green and Liverpool Street is open to provide underground shelter for 4,000 people. On October 6th, gales and low clouds give London its first quiet night in a month. Now, October 7th, German troops enter Romania to restructure Romanian armed forces, as the Romanian oil wells are of vital importance to the Germans. On October 8, Britain refuses the Japanese request to close the Burma Road by which Western supplies can reach the army of Chiang Kai-shek. On October 11th, Marshal Pétain says France must free herself from all so-called traditional friendships and enmities. Incredible. On October 12th, Hitler abandons work on Operation Sea Lion against Britain, the planned invasion, and the invasion plan is postponed to the spring of 1941, and as we know, it will never happen. Now, Mussolini learns that Hitler's occupied Romanian oil wells in order to protect them, in hyphens. The coup infuriates the fascist leader, who says angrily to Ciano, and I quote, "Hitler always presents me with a fait accompli, but this time I shall pay him back in his own coin. When he reads the papers, he'll see that I've conquered Greece, and that and this will make us all square." It doesn't quite go that well. So basically, on October 14th, Marshal Badoglio, assures Mussolini 20 divisions is all he will need to defeat Greece, and that it will take 3 months, but it doesn't entirely go well, as we will see. So, on October 16th, the RAF bombs targets in Germany, including the Kiel naval base. Now, on October 17th, 8 U-boats attack convoys SC-7 and HX-79, and from 17th to 20th of October, sink 31 ships. Those 8 U-boats sink 31 ships in 3 days, totaling over 150,000 tons of shipping. Incredible. On October 18th, anti-Semitic legislation is introduced in Vichy, France. So basically, anti-Jewish legislation is brought in. Malcolm MacDonald, Minister of Health, announces that 489,000 children have so far been evacuated from London. And Winston Churchill broadcasts to France, and I quote Churchill, "The morning will come. Brightly will it shine on the brave and true, kindly on all those who suffer for the cause, glorious upon the tombs of heroes. Vive la France." Hitler also on that day receives Pierre Laval, Vice Premier of the Vichy government, and Liverpool undergoes its 200th air raid on October 18th. Liverpool, of course, a major port and industrial area. On October 23rd, King Boris III of Bulgaria is invited to take part in the coming action against Greece, but refuses Mussolini's invitation. And basically with this, the Battle of Britain is pretty much over. Air attacks do continue, but what you find is that leading up to November 1st, the Battle of Britain continues unabated, more air attacks, but the British have lost 827 planes, and shot down 2,400 German aircraft. Also on November 1st, the RAF launched their heaviest raid yet on Berlin, and the RAF also launched a raid on Naples in Italy. So the German air losses since August 8th now by November 3rd add up to 2,433 planes and 6,000 airmen. And also November 3rd is the first night since September 7th when no air raid sirens sound over London. The Battle of Britain is winding down, okay? RAF aircraft on November 7th bomb the Krupp armaments factories in Essen in a night raid, and Brindisi is again bombed by the RAF. And on November 9th, okay, a perfect time to end this video, November 9th is the death of Neville Chamberlain, okay, who pulled out of War Cabinet due to illness. He dies at the age of 71 on November 9th, 1940. So during the night, okay, during the night of November 14th, 449 German aircraft carry out a complete carpet bombing of Coventry, okay, one of our big industrial centres. Many ancient buildings in the city centre, including the 14th century cathedral, are destroyed. 550 people are killed, many more thousands wounded, and 21 factories are destroyed. Yet the city's production capacity is still not seriously affected. After this, the Germans coin the word annihilate, razed to the ground. Okay, they coined the word meaning such. Now, basically, okay, I will leave this part there. You know, the Battle of Britain has been fought. The Germans had to put back Sea Lion, then put back Sea Lion. They failed in their mission to destroy the RAF. Britain is already launching massive retaliatory raids against Italy and Germany, and British bomber attacks on Germany are becoming more frequent as they will through the war. But I will leave part 10 there, and we'll come back and look at the Italian attempts at conquest. I'm out for now.